So my topic is about reclaiming profitability. I really enjoyed listening to your presentation just now, Dunya. The last 2 years have been remarkable in all of our lives in so many ways. And what we've done as a firm, by the way, my firm is primarily a bodily injury firm. We handle third-party cases, but we have always had a segment where we handled a lot of provider cases too, primarily by Dustin Hoff, an attorney in my firm. And so we understand the concept of handling hundreds and hundreds and thousands of files. We are weaning off that in what our business plan is, but I want to talk about certain nuts and bolts about no-fault amendments and what can be done, but more importantly, talking about running a business in an incredible, unpredictable time. So today we've found ourselves in a totally new world. It's shaking the foundations of many of our law practices. You want to know how to react to these changes and resume the profitable business that you were running. You can adapt your practice to this new world and your future can be secured. And that's what we all want. So within these short time constraints, I want to give you some of the tools that I've found to help set your law firm on a path for great success. The limits are really only the limits that you set, not the legislature. And I hope that you can begin to see that you are in control of your future. This presentation I'm going to spend just a couple minutes talking about what the problems are, but you know that, you've heard it over and over today. I want to spend more time on how to reframe your future and then touch on some opportunities that I see that exist. Michigan's limited PIP policies are significantly changing our world and our clients' opportunities to receive treatment, doctors' opportunities to provide treatment is going to become more and more curtailed as more drivers choose to purchase limited PIP policies. So from a patient's perspective, the problem's obvious. I mean, there's limits on the amount of no-fault medical coverage that they can receive. Once that runs out, they're left to either their private health insurance, Medicare, or Medicaid, which sharply limits or doesn't even cover most post-acute rehabilitation. And that is what really puts people's lives back together. So in short summary, I think we all know what the limits are, but if you're on Medicare, you don't have to buy any PIP coverage at all under the amendments. If you're on Medicaid, you can buy a policy as small as $50,000. The rest of us, you can buy a $250,000 policy or a $500,000 policy, or you can buy the unlimited lifetime benefit that we've all enjoyed for more than 40 years. And I hope everybody here is wise enough to do that. And if you end up in assigned claims, MAICP, you're now going to be capped at $250,000, which is amazingly short-sighted policy in this act, but that's what the rule is. So for patients with limited PIP policies, they were sharply limited in the no-fault medical coverage they can receive. So this poses challenges for our clients. How can our clients get the care that they need? If your clients are medical providers, how can they find a way to provide the care that they want to provide to help people? Fee caps, another big issue, right? Medicare fee schedule. So for Medicare compensable services, the new law allows or defines a reasonable charge of up to 200% of Medicare's reimbursement for that particular service. And this, by the way, reduces to 195% this July. And then July of next year of 2023, it will reduce down to 190% of Medicare. So Michigan no fault is and by the way, okay, I'm showing you the statute that allows for increases to those fee schedules as inflation increases the cost and the reimbursement for Medicare provided services, and it's judged by the Consumer Price Index. It's been so long since we had inflation in this country. Many of us have never heard the term Consumer Price Index in a meaningful way, but I've lived through times of inflation, and anyway, it becomes pertinent in the increases that providers will be allowed to charge. By the way, the interesting piece of the statute actually limits the increases. For example, when Medicare increases reimbursement for a particular procedure, that provider can enjoy that increase as long as it's not higher than what they charged in January of 2019. What about services that are non-Medicare services? These include like incredibly important services like traumatic brain injury facilities, residential care for TBI victims. These people, without these facilities, these people would probably be in prison or dead. And these facilities help people to live incredibly rich lives that they would never have been able to live before. And the legislature cut them by 45%. So these changes in no-fault benefits will wipe out many of our old ways of doing things. So if you were a provider or attorney that primarily represented, for example, MRI facilities, your future is going to change. MRI facilities really are not going to be focused on providing MRIs for auto cases because Medicare reimburses such a small amount for them. If you represent injured people that have limited PIP policies, your business must change if you're going to provide that service to your clients. Many medical providers cannot sustain the cuts in reimbursements, so they're leaving the field or closing altogether. We've seen this with a lot of attendant care companies. They're just, many of them, and many of the biggest ones have just closed. If you don't believe me, Rainbow Rehabilitation, which I think is the largest brain injury treatment facility in Michigan, announced that it has sold to another company called Neuro Restorative, and they're done with the business. It was quite an amazing announcement last week. So these facilities, in my practice, in our practice, by the way, when I say our practice, so my firm is known as Christensen Law, but the legal name is Christensen and Keim, and my partner, Sarah Keim, is on this call. And we have represented brain injury facilities as clients in a provider context and continue to do that as well, advise them and so forth through this transition that they're continuing to experience. As well, attendant care companies and nurse case managers and others. So we do represent these types of providers, but our, 90% of our law practice is representing people. Many of them are in these facilities. So these changes impact all of our clients, whether you're a provider or you represent individuals. So most of us need to change our businesses. How do we do that? That's what I call reframing your future. So you have to take, I think, a very strategic and intentional direction as you make decisions for your law firm. As you make decisions in your life, we all like to be in control of our life, and we don't want other circumstances dictating what we are going to do. So I didn't know a single thing about running a business. For most of my career, I didn't have to, but 8 years ago, Sarah and I left a firm and opened our firm. Actually, it's 8 years today, and open our office, and that began my education as a manager, and to recognize that we are running businesses, providing very important services. So we have to be careful and control the path of our law firms. You start by taking a strategic viewpoint towards growth, really from a very high altitude, take a 60,000 foot view and work from the macro to the micro. So you want to do your homework first. Before trying to create a foundation, you have to start at the start. Examine everything you do. Look at your past performance. What works? What doesn't? What are your competitors doing? You have issues with your employees in your office, etc. Look at every aspect and facet of your practice. Then you need to do an examination of everything. Do a radically honest SWOT, which stands for S, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. A SWOT analysis to identify the opportunities that are before you and the threats that are before you, so you thoroughly understand your own practice. So you start with your why. And this is the most important piece of forming plans for our business or any business. Why do we do what we do? You have to start with that. What is it that makes you get up every morning and want to go and do your job? Only once you understand that can you really begin deciding your purpose, who you are as a business, what you want to do, and how to make it happen. So it all starts with the why. I love, there's a TED Talk by Simon Sinek who talks about this. It's 17 minutes. It's really good. Take 17 minutes and watch that TED Talk. He talks about that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do what you do. And some of his examples are, for example, look at Apple Computer. It's a computer company. They have engineers, they make computers, they have chips. What makes them different than Dell or HP? They all have engineers, they have chips, they make computers. There's something different about Apple. And he opens the door to helping understand what makes them different. Not just Apple, Martin Luther King, and some other great examples, but uncovering your why. Now, our why at our firm is really to represent those who may not otherwise have any effective access to justice. So our vision, and we have a vision statement, is making the world better by providing the very best care for people and families that have suffered catastrophic loss and bringing them justice to safeguard their future. That is our why. And then everything that we do and every strategy we formed is about making that vision a reality. So ways that we do that is we are relentlessly client-centric. These are the values of our firm. They're written down and everybody in the firm can repeat them back to you. An organization of the finest people in the profession, providing the best client care in the industry. The test of whether we are executing our mission is, we want every client that calls, the best thing in a client's day was their contact with our law firm. So that's a tall order. That is our why and our mission. So our core values guide our behaviors. Our core values are compassion, excellence, teamwork. So when you are walking through this analysis of your own organization, and I didn't do this until 2 years ago. Funny thing about 2 years, we got to thinking hard and fast. What is our future? And these, I think, have always been there, but less spoken. Now they're very much spoken of. Developing SMART goals, 1-year targets, 3-year targets, 5-year targets. Setting goals are critical. And what I'm really talking about is putting in place a strategic plan. Where do you want your firm to be? What do you want it to look like in 5 years? We know what we want Christensen and Keim to look like in 5 years. And we have a plan. It's written down on an Excel chart that we execute, and we watch it, and we work it. So SMART goals, S-M-A-R-T, specific. You want your goals to be specific so that you're able to measure and know when you accomplish them. Determine who, what, where, and when, and why for each goal. You want them to be measurable, to develop criteria for measuring progress so you know when the goal's been achieved. You want it to be achievable. Create goals for your business that are actually attainable by ensuring that you and your team have the skills and resources to meet the goals. Make sure your goals are relevant. Align your goals with the overall objectives of your business and the realities of the marketplace. And have time limits. Give yourself and your staff a deadline for the goals to provide a sense of urgency and the opportunity to schedule steps, intermediate steps, for how each person's going to achieve their goals. So developing a brand is a whole workshop in itself, but these are really business development tools. Why should a client hire Christensen Law? What makes us any different? If you Google personal injury attorneys, you're going to have a whole bunch of firms, and they all they fight. They have big settlements. They're the biggest. They're the smallest. They all say the same thing. So to be an average firm, say what they say. There's no reason to pick one over the other. What makes your firm unique? What's your unique sales proposition, USP? What makes your firm stand out from the competitors? What is it about your firm that conveys your competitive advantage? What's your differentiator? Value proposition, VP. That's a statement of benefit to the client. What's in it for them? WIIFT. What's in it for them? So this is a clear statement of benefit to the customer. Tangible results, outcome focused. and it stresses the business value. Brand promise is the BP. What does the brand consistently deliver? You are a brand. Your firm is a brand. What is the expectation that people have every time a customer does business with you? So your brand promise needs to be credible, and it needs to be different, needs to be relevant, and hopefully nobody else can reproduce it. And finally, develop an elevator pitch. Because really what we're talking about for many people is their firm's going to enter new markets. And you want to do this intentionally and be armed with the every chance of success. So what would you say to a stranger that describes your company during a 15-second elevator ride? It explains your why. I mean, it states a problem, ties your unique sales proposition, maybe an example, and then it makes an ask. Something, and we've done exercises with this with our staff, and it's fun. And they do it. You know, and we're a personal injury law firm. We're on the second floor of this building. I'm Dave Christensen. Yeah, we're a law firm. We represent a lot of victims of traumatic brain injury. Yeah, we're one of the few firms that specialize that. And it's, you know, nice to meet you. Drop by sometime. That conveys something that we like to believe is true about our firm. So as you're talking about a new direction, maybe provider law firms, maybe some of you will decide that you want to be in the bodily injury area. And maybe it's been a little intimidating because you're competing with Mike, you're competing with Sam, you're competing with Jeffrey, you're competing with a lot of people and a lot of firms. And we just feel very small and insignificant. And how are we going to do this? When I got into it, I didn't have any idea how to go about developing business. And I learned that people do business with people that they know, that they like, and that they trust. So we have business development plans in our firm. Every attorney has a business development plan that they have developed. And that is charted, and its progress is made. And we talk about what are we going to do this month. Each person has something on their plan that they're going to do. And actually it's tied to compensation for many people. So, and I have a plan, Sarah has a plan, we all have a plan. So we are able to hold each other accountable. We break our annual plan into quarters, and planning that covers opportunities that help us remain visible as well as relationship building. We examine all possible relationships to evaluate its referral sources. So if you're a provider attorney, you know a lot of doctors. Well, there's a potential really great referral source. You know facilities, you know lawyers, you have contacts that all can be brought to bear. So maintaining the status quo in this day and age by not changing anything equals stagnation, in my opinion. So reframing your future. So what's your new niche? Are you going to be a third-party attorney? Kind of, I'm shifting gears now, but and your firm decides that we want to do this. We don't have referral sources. You develop a plan, a business development plan. You have relationships. You decide, I'm going to have 2 lunches a week with potential referral sources. I'm going to expand my network. Tell people what you're doing. Let them know you're doing this. I know that in the provider attorney context, provider clients don't think of us as personal injury attorneys. We're more on the collection side for them in their mind. That's where they slot us. Many of them, if they have somebody who needs to be referred to attorney, many of them are not going to call the provider attorney. Let them know, hey, I am an injury attorney if this is the direction that you want to go. Whatever market you're getting into, you need to communicate to the people and let them know that here you are and you're looking to do business. You're looking for referrals. I never really worked hard at developing referrals when I worked at my previous law firm. But when we opened up our office, I needed to figure out, what am I going to do to increase the referrals that I'm getting? And I had lunch with a lawyer that I respect a lot. And he says, Dave, just ask people and you'll get them. That was like huge for me. And I never even thought about that. So look for new opportunities, and we're going to touch on some of these opportunities today. So we're carving a new niche, leverage situational conditions. Maybe this new law provides opportunities in areas you haven't thought about before. So when you're really looking at adding a new dimension to your practice, decide what makes sense for you. Same service as always, doing things the same way, it takes no real effort to do that, has the least payoff. Doing a related service, same practice area, some effort, probably some payoff. Higher effort, higher payoff. A totally new practice area, a lot of fear, high effort, big learning curve. Huge payoff. So let's move into what are some of these opportunities. And some of these will not appeal to everyone or maybe nobody. And maybe these ideas might spark something in your mind that sparks something else. I don't know. One thing that as this law was changing really over the past couple of years, many providers that I know and have worked closely with, and many of them treat our clients. And so there's a personal dimension as well as legal relationship as well with many of them. So I began just informally consulting with, for example, the brain injury programs. How are they going to survive? And so we've really come up, and so this was an area of consulting. Before DIFS made its decision about nurse case managers, they were terrified that they also were going to suffer a 45% slash in their billable revenue. Well, they were panicked, of course, and so we consulted with them, and what we did was guide them and learn a lot about Medicare and Medicare codes and regulations, talk with a lot of lawyers who know a lot more about it than I do, talk to Wayne, Richard Burns, people that are really experienced in Medicare regulations, and so learning a lot about that. And so consulting with providers was a dimension of practice that we really hadn't ever had to do before. But my first year or two out of law school, I worked at a large firm in a healthcare practice. Well, part of that practice was doing Medicare appeals. So when Medicare would fail to reimburse a provider, they could hire the law firm, and there is an appeal process. It's an administrative appeal. And many of those cases were taken on contingent fee. So this was something I had seen before. And, it left some doors open that I was able to go and investigate. How do we do this? Wayne talked about utilization review. So there's not a lot of doors open if a provider goes that route. In terms of representing them, they can appeal to court, but it's really just a review of whether the administrative process was carried out properly. But you know what? If somebody wanted to do that, there's going to be work there available. So I have a whole presentation on case management in Medicare, and I'm going to just run through this quickly because case management does not provide treatment. They don't provide medical care to their clients. They provide access to medical care, and they provide assistance to the providers in communication and so forth, and help the patient understand what's going on. They talk to adjusters, but they don't provide direct care. So they never should have been included in the 55% fee cut. And they were for a little while. DIFS has fixed that. Doesn't mean everybody always gets paid what they're supposed to get paid, but they're on the right track. But in analyzing this potential problem, what we did was we found what is the corollary in the Medicare world. It was a chronic care manager. So the chronic care manager has really a number of different codes that they can bill under. But just looking at the top line there, for example, in 2022, a 20-minute unit brings $64.03. So it actually, even at just 100% of Medicare, pays better for an hour than what most nurse case managers even charge, which typically they charge 105, maybe 125 an hour, in that range. So we were able to line that up. But what is a chronic care manager in Medicare eyes? Well, you look at what does that code consist of and what's the criteria? 2 chronic conditions, regular development, revision of plan of care, and so forth. And so there's these criteria that make up what is the service that's compensable as a chronic care manager. Now I'm going to come back to that just to show how the analysis continued, but there's another service that's been deeply gouged by the new law, and that's attendant care. Attendant care keeps people alive. They're being routinely slashed to 55% of their charges. And as you know, family and friends attendant care is limited to 56 hours, and they're slashing what the family can charge. So first of all, why are attendant care agencies even being treated as a 55%er? So Medicare pays for home health care. We know that. So one of the greatest tragedies is the loss of these attendant care companies. All kinds of people need attendant care, from basic supervision to quads that are on vents. Without attendant care, they die, and quickly. So what's necessary to be a home health care provider in Medicare's eyes, so that you can be on the Medicare fee schedule instead of having your bills slashed by 55%. To be a Medicare approved provider, you have to be a home health aide or CNA for the lowest level of care that Medicare will compensate. The patient is to be confined to home. Services described on a plan of care. All of this is pretty easy to meet. That patient must require PT, OT, skilled nursing, or speech intermittently. And that is really most people that fall in this category that really need attendant care. They provide personal care. They can even do some household chores. The reimbursement rate is $16.45 per unit at 15 minutes, or $69 per hour. And these are the different rates for different services under Medicare. So these companies should not be going out of business. The CPT codes are there, G0156 for a home health aide, G0300 for an LPN, and G0299 for an RN. So the lowest rate is $64 per hour. So here's the analysis that in my mind paves the way. It was first for nurse case managers, but still for attendant care companies. The no-fault amendment says that defines Medicare as basically what we're doing with Medicare is just using its fee schedules to determine what people can charge. So we look at Medicare without regard to the limitations that are defined in the regulations, some of which I've shown you for chronic care manager and for attendant care. We only use it as a number. So you ignore everything but the price, ignore the limitations on usage. For example, chronic care manager can only be billed or provided once a month under Medicare. That's a limit on utilization. We ignore that under the plain black letter law of this act. So this is what it looks like. Here's the chronic care manager. That person doesn't work face-to-face. Basically, it happens at the end of the day, and that person does their job mostly with the electronic health records, and they have to utilize electronic health records under Medicare. They can only bill this code once a month. So these are what I believe are limitations. Attendant care, you got to be a CNA. Maybe that stands. You don't have to be a Medicare approved provider because we're not grafting all of Medicare into the No Fault Act, just the pricing. Maximum of 28 hours per week. That's a limit on utilization. That doesn't come in. So walking through this analysis, I think has the potential for great success. Now, in talking with somebody who I learned so much from, which is Richard Burns, about this for a long time, he pointed out that this language in our No Fault Act, adopting 200% of Medicare's fee schedule, was first done in Florida, and we've grafted that language from Florida into the Michigan system. And they use, like I said, 200% of Medicare. And they have similar language at the bottom. They are not allowed to apply any limitation on the number of treatments or utilization limits that apply under Medicare. So the statute is very close to Michigan's statute. And then there's a case back from 2012 that interpreted this in Florida, by the way, that interpreted this language. And the Florida court ruled that only the pricing portion of Medicare is transplanted into the No Fault Act. So why am I talking about this? Well, we are lawyers that people turn to in their time of need. These are injured people that need these services. And I have severely injured people that really need these services, and we're having a heck of a hard time finding those services. But they look to us to help. So we need them to survive. We need these companies to survive. They care for our people and they help us build our cases. So you know how they say that lawyers will always find a way around obstacles? Well, these are the obstacles and you are the lawyers, and we can all prosper as a result of this kind of work. I want to turn now to friends and family attendant care. It has the 56-hour limitation. So these are the saddest calls that I've been receiving since July 1st of last year. Many old clients, paraplegics, quadriplegics, people that have been relying upon the no-fault system for years. I have a client who predates the MCCA. Her injury was so long ago. So families who've cared for loved ones for many years, where they've given up their careers to care for a spouse or a child. Financially, the families become completely dependent upon providing these services. They bought their house, they outfitted the house. Everything they do is around providing care, and that's what they've done with their entire lives. And suddenly it's all changed. So these people are calling because the insurance company told them, we're stopping. You can only do 56 hours. And by the way, we're going to cut your pay down from 18 and 24 to $12.50 an hour. They don't know what to do. They're actually having to sell their homes, and they don't know how they're going to live. So what do we do with these? These people need help. Then the insurance company makes them a terrible offer. Well, we will go ahead and pay your 24 hours, but you're going to get $12 or something like that. And can we find a way to help them? So a couple little details of the family provided piece of the no fault amendment. It only applies, these limits only apply to family and old friends that they knew before the accident. So someone else can come in that they did not know before the accident and provide all the care that they need. So can the care be provided by someone that's not a family member or a friend, someone they didn't know before the accident? Also, the limits only apply to care that's provided at the insured's home. So is it worth it maybe to obtain an alternative location? This could be done maybe for some, maybe not for others. So a lot of people are, and lawyers, I know, are assisting clients in entering contracts with the insurance company that will pay the 24 hours for a much smaller than hourly rate. Another way that some lawyers are helping people in this situation with pre-amendment accidents is questioning the retroactive application. The Anderi case is winding its way through the circuit courts. This is a long-term solution, if it's a solution at all. It doesn't provide immediate relief, but it involves the question of people who were injured before the amendments took place, and they were covered by universal unlimited policies. The insurance industry takes the position that the fee limits apply to all claims and to attendant care. So there are a number of good trial court rulings that are coming out that are dealing both with retroactivity as well as applying Medicare to attendant care and using the Medicare fee schedule based on the Medicare home health aid. A court in Livingston County granted a preliminary injunction by a very smart lawyer that brought that and argued it very recently. And there's been a number of victories at the trial court level. So these require a deep knowledge of Medicare regulations, and a motion like this should not be done casually. We do not want to have losses start to rack up. So far, we've had good results, but this is an area of need. Preliminary injunctions and so forth, huge need. Let me address now the PIP limits. Some people will have none. If they have Medicare, they'll have no PIP. Others might have 250 or 500. So some of the worst injuries I've seen are in the assigned claims facility, MAICP, because these are frequently pedestrians that are run down and have horrendous injuries. And now there's a very limited coverage for them. So in a catastrophic case where there's a capped policy, say $250,000, the hospital bill alone will get their very quickly and overwhelm the policy limits, leaving nothing for post-acute rehabilitation. So what can be done with that? Many are going to be owed. Many providers are going to be owed. Should the hospital get all of that when many providers are going to be owed? Now, Wayne Miller is going to tell me, of course. He's fortunate enough to represent a number of hospitals. As the attorney for the individual, what can you consider doing? I haven't done this, but we were close to doing it, and then DIFS stepped in. I'll tell you the story, but consider attempting to have the policy paid over to the insured and let the injured person oversee dispersing the funds to providers in a way where everybody, hopefully everybody would be involved in terms of the providers. But rehabilitation facilities aren't going to be able to take capped cases. But if there's $250,000, that will provide a significant amount of rehabilitation. Not nearly enough, but is some better than none. Can you get a hospital and a rehab facility and PT into a room and negotiate things? I don't know. But it's just food for thought. Another opportunity, potentially, third-party provider practice. So the changes in the tort aspects of our law, now where there's a limited PIP policy, the third-party lawyer can make these claims in the third-party case for excess medical bills. So if there's a limited PIP policy and you're representing the provider, can you intervene into that third-party case? Because there's probably a limited fund there to split up. How about the unpaid balance? Maybe the fee schedules don't cover the entire charge of a medical provider. Can you recover that in the tort case? I think the answer is yes. So will your doctor and the injured person be kind of fighting over this? Is this a conflict that the provider wants? I don't know. But this idea of intervening on behalf of providers into the third-party case, I would always obviously encourage you to work with that attorney that's representing that client, because this could end up in a trial, and you want everybody to be on the same page. Now, back to the third-party plaintiff practice, and I know I'm running a little bit long, but the big change is that our minimum bodily injury policy limits have gone from 20,000, where they've been for my entire career, up to 250,000. So let's face it, purely third-party lawyers like a lot about this change. Now, this changes the value of a huge portfolio of cases that exist in Michigan. So if you have not primarily done third-party cases and you choose to do this, you're on a great path. Conduct your strategic planning, determine whether your firm is a good fit, and set about developing business. It will happen for you. Contact larger firms for referrals. You'll start small, you'll grow. You'll get some trial experience. Use your relationships, join organizations, MAJ, AAJ, chambers of commerce, bar associations. Get outside the legal field. Get onto nonprofit boards. Take action in the community where you live and work. Have 1 or 2 lunches a week with people that you don't know. Ask people for help. Ask them for cases. This works. So, points to remember. You're in charge of your life. You're in charge of your law firm's direction. Chart your own course. make a plan and carry out that plan religiously. Have meetings, monthly meetings, make sure people are progressing towards their goals. I think that every challenge presents a growth opportunity. If you choose to look at it that way, it will become real for you. Leverage your contacts for referrals if you choose to go in a new direction with your law firm. Remember, you're only limited by your creativity and your knowledge. So maximize this environment and you can truly thrive. So thank you for this opportunity, Danya. Appreciate it.